OffLecture. Learn beyond class.
We tend to view plants as the static background of our world, passive scenery in a garden or on a balcony. But beneath the surface, they are violently active machines. In reality, they are the highly engineered engines of life. Biologically, plants are living organisms defined by two continuous actions. They actively extract water and minerals from the soil, and they synthesize their own food from scratch. That manufacturing process is highly specific. It requires a precise combination of sunlight, water, carbon dioxide, and a trapping agent called chlorophyll to operate. To understand how this synthesis works, you have to decode the structure. If you want to build a building, you need a blueprint. Biology is exactly the same. You have to understand the physical architecture of the organism. For a plant, this structural blueprint relies on four primary pillars. First, the roots, second, the stem, then the leaves, and finally, the flowers. By coordinating these four structures, a plant transforms raw minerals and sunlight into the chemical energy that drives the planet. This specific biological engineering is the physical starting point for nearly all terrestrial food and oxygen. Because plants range from microscopic sprouts to massive redwoods, botanists strictly categorize them using two physical metrics: their maximum height and the structural integrity of their stem. The first category is herbs. These are short plants characterized by a green, tender, and soft stem with very few branches. A standard tomato plant is the classic example. Shrubs increase the scale. They have a hard stem, though not incredibly thick, and their branches originate almost directly from the base of the plant near the soil line, giving them a dense, bushy appearance. Think of a lemon or a hibiscus plant. This creates a common trap for students. A tomato is a fruit in the kitchen, but structurally, the plant is an herb because of its soft green stem. A lemon plant is a shrub because its stem is rigid and branches from the base. The physical hardness of the stem dictates the category. The largest category is trees. They are tall, their branches start high above the ground, and their stem is massive and deeply rigid. At this scale, the stem is reclassified as a trunk, and it develops a tough protective layer called bark. Mango, neem, and banyan all follow this blueprint. But the matrix has anomalies. Some plants possess stems that are simply too weak to stand upright on their own. We divide these anomalies into two types. Creepers, like watermelon and pumpkin, are so fragile they simply spread flat horizontally across the ground. Climbers, like the money plant or pea plant, also have weak stems, but they utilize neighboring structures, a stick or a wall, to ascend vertically. Both creeping and climbing are highly effective mechanical adaptations. By spreading wide or climbing high despite a weak stem, these plants manage to trap the maximum amount of sunlight required to drive photosynthesis. Moving underground, the root system serves a dual purpose. It is the physical anchor keeping the plant stable and the primary mechanism for absorbing nutrients and moisture from the soil. There are two main architectural designs for this underground system. The first is the taproot. This features one dominant, thick central root driving straight down, with smaller secondary offshoots called lateral roots branching off its sides. The alternative design is the fibrous root. Here, a central main root is entirely absent. Instead, a dense web-like cluster of similar-sized fiber-like roots extends outward directly from the base of the stem. Connecting those roots to the rest of the organism is the stem. It operates strictly as a two-way street. It conducts water and minerals upward from the roots and transports the synthesized food downward from the leaves to the rest of the plant. The stem has specific structural landmarks. Leaves always emerge from precise junction points called nodes. The empty sections of the stem between two nodes are measured and classified as internodes. Together, the roots and the stem form an unbroken, continuous hydraulic network. If this transport highway fails, the upper leaves starve and the organism dies. At the top of that highway sits the leaf, the plant's dedicated kitchen. It connects to the stem node via a stalk called the petiole. The broad, green, food-producing surface is the lamina, and it is split down the center by a thick primary vein called the midrib. In biology, you can actually predict the hidden root system of any plant simply by looking at the visible pattern of veins, the venation on its leaves. The rule is strict. If a leaf displays reticulate venation, a complex net-like design spreading outward from the midrib, that plant possesses a taproot system below ground. Conversely, if the leaf displays parallel venation, where the veins run in straight, unbroken lines side by side, that plant will always anchor itself with a fibrous root system. Beyond manufacturing food, leaves execute a critical process called transpiration. The lamina is covered in tiny pores, known as stomata, which open to release excess water vapor into the air. The evaporation of water through the stomata creates a mechanical vacuum. This negative pressure generates a force known as the suction pull, which physically hauls water upward from the roots. This physics mechanism is the only way a massive tree can transport heavy water from deep underground all the way to its highest branches, fighting gravity every inch of the way. Stop transpiration and the suction pull dies. The flower serves as the final architectural component, a specialized reproductive hub designed for a single mechanical purpose. The outer layers serve distinct tactical purposes. The green, leaf-like sepals physically shield and protect the flower during its bud stage. The bright, heavily pigmented petals are designed strictly to attract insects to facilitate pollination. Beneath the petals lies the male reproductive organ, the stamen. It consists of a long, supporting stalk called the filament, which holds up a bag-like structure called the anther, where the pollen is actually produced. At the very center of the flower is the pistil, the female reproductive organ. Its upper section features a sticky landing pad for pollen called the stigma, which leads down a long connecting tube called the style. The style terminates at the swollen base of the pistil, the ovary. Inside this protected chamber sit the ovules, microscopic, bead-like structures waiting to be fertilized. Together, the protective sepals, the attractive petals, the pollen-producing stamen, and the receptive pistil operate in mechanical harmony to guarantee the continuation of the species. You can apply this structural logic to any environment. Take common grass. It features parallel leaf venation, which allows the long blades to bend rather than tear apart in high winds, anchored firmly by a wide fibrous root system. A mango tree requires a vastly different engineering solution. To support its massive scale, it drives a deep taproot into the earth, coats its massive trunk in thick bark, and utilizes reticulate leaves to maximize its broad surface area. The rules of classification are clear. Plants are sorted by height and stem integrity into herbs, shrubs, and trees, with creepers and climbers adapting to their weak stems to chase sunlight. Internally, the stem acts as a two-way street conducting nutrients. The roots, whether taproot or fibrous, act as the anchor, and the flower isolates its parts, sepals, petals, stamen, and pistil, for reproduction. These are the mechanical rules of plant life. Mastering this vocabulary and the underlying structural logic is the prerequisite for understanding complex biology. You have to know how the engine is built before you can understand how it runs.